Hi, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Owen Payne, one of the co-creators of TWF Wrestling, and this is Project Alpha.
I want to cover a little something that may or may not have been covered before, but I honestly doubt it. Now, the original story and the original intent behind TWF Wrestling was just a couple of kids out there, pro wrestling fans of course, doing what they saw on TV and doing what they do in their bedrooms or their basements with siblings and cousins, just trying to have a good time. And you know what? We tried YouTube before. Don't ask. Please, don't ask. It was stupid. It was a bad idea. But you know what? We thought maybe we could upload this and maybe someone would see it. Maybe someone would like it. And another way, we just wanted to look back on our work. Because we all want to be pro wrestlers someday. Alright, we're all little pro wrestling fans with dreams of going to the WWE someday. And you want to get discovered. You want to see how good you're doing out there. You want to watch your matches over. You want to critique yourself. You want to see what moves you want to do again or see what moves you never want to do again. But yeah, it was co-created by me and Dustin Havoc in, I think, December of 2015. And we started uploading in May of 2016, if I remember correctly. We had that entire winter to prep because we live in a state in which it is, there's snow all over the ground, and it's like 10 below. So frankly, there was nothing we could do until about May. April, I'd say, is when we first got it up, but of course, this is the first time we've ever done it, so we practiced for that time, and had to figure out how to video edit, which was all on me, at least at that time. Dustin's making his own videos now, and he's doing quite well for himself. He's learning how to edit, learning how to record, getting better at that. But yeah, I record everything on my phone, as you could probably tell by the quality of the videos and even the editing for some time, because I didn't have an editor on a computer for some time. Thank goodness I have that now, because it is a gift. But I'd say the quality, though a lot of people critique it, is not as bad as it's made out to be. A phone's quality can be quite good. This is being shot on my phone right now, and I'm not complaining about the quality. I think it's totally fine.
Little did Owen know his editor would make the quality look absolutely terrible, making him look like a fool.
But yeah, we put our plans into action. We had notebooks full of names and costumes and pay-per-views and junk like that. Had to come up with our own names, and we had 2 other wrestlers start out. It was 4 of us when we first started. And though this is probably a bit of a secret until now, we had masked characters basically come in a little later with, I think, Razor, the Demon, Warrior, Adam Massacre, Aiden Gray, and Logan Reaper. I believe were all of them in total. Of course, I believe those were set about in order as well. But those were me or Dustin or Austin under masks, trying to take on another persona. And though, yes, it is technically just still us, we did end up doing different moves, different costumes, different personas under them, so it was almost like at least trying to make an entire another wrestler on the roster. But if you notice, that made it absolutely impossible to make some matches happen, and quite difficult, especially when it came down to, say, me or Dustin. Towards the end of that first season, we would have 2 to 3 characters each, so we'd have bags full of just attires every time we'd want to wrestle. We come out of a match and have to change, and if we want interference, we'd have to come out of that match, and we would have to go change clothes, go do it with some kind of movie magic, come out, change again, and go finish the match. It was ridiculous.
This was in about April, when we were both very, very young, scrawny, and at lack of knowledge. This was also not uploaded for the fact that you can hear some loud chanting and cheering in the background, which we sadly had no control over. But excuse the poor wrestling, but this is a bit of a gem, so I thought I'd show you guys and see what you think. Let's continue.
One, two. One, two, three. Ding, ding, ding.
Now time for a little bit of a story. If you guys remember, we had to relocate somewhere in the middle of, I'd say, the first season, right before we started doing the series TWF Brawl. Now, no one really knew the actual kind of what went down there. We had to be very brief about how we explained it. Excuse me, but basically the person whose land on which we had our trampoline was very angry with us at this time. He essentially didn't want to be responsible if one of us got hurt, so we rebelled and decided to go to a new location with an entirely new trampoline and start up an entire new series there. With, I believe, it was the same competitors, and we went on for the entire rest of that year with that new trampoline. The only reason we got kicked off was because we wanted to try a couple new ideas that weren't exactly okay with said person. But all ended up good in the end. If you notice, the return show was back at that original location. Now before heading over to our other set, I'd like to show you one of the last things we did on this trampoline, trying to fulfill a request from a fan. This is a little submission challenge we never uploaded because it went horribly wrong, but I think it's pretty funny and I think you will too. Let's see.
Oh, my nuts. My nuts. Oh, my nuts.
The manhood of Dustin Havoc is being squeezed.
Oh, my nuts. Ah! Oh!
As long as he doesn't tap, do you quit?
No, no. Ah! You got me. Your elbow into my shoulder. Oh, you got your foot on my nuts. Ah! Oh! 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 Ah! Ah! I got this. All day. Oh! Oh, God! Oh!
8 taps, it's over.
Oh.
I'm able to resist.
I didn't even think of that.
What are you doing?
I'm hurting my leg more than yours.
I bet.
Oh, that hurts.
I bet it does. Is he allowed to tap?
Oh, tap out.
Why?
God. Oh. Ah. Oh,
Yeah! I'm the winner!
This is going to be a little longer than my other passages, but, well, that's alright. I'm going to go through each one of our pay-per-views in the first season and say a couple things about them. What I liked about them, the biggest selling point about them, if there was anything about them. Some of them were actually privated. The very first ones that we were completely ashamed of, those being, I believe, Survival Rivalries and Cash Case, which were the very first three. Survival was the first, then we had Cash Case, then Rivalries. Survival and Rivalries had absolutely nothing, no selling points whatsoever about them. Cash Case had a bit of one, which was the Cash Case, of course, the contract, and that one turned out to be absolutely ridiculous because we recorded it in a rainstorm, and everything turned out to be garbage. If you have seen the first match, even just before we start the match, you see somebody fall on their butt because, I don't know, the trampoline's completely soaked. It was interesting to say the least, but we were all coming out of there with colds and miserable because we just wrestled 30 minutes in the rain. After that, I believe we went to Warzone. Warzone was supposed to be our biggest pay-per-view of the year. Ended up being one of the worst by far, I believe. Let's see. Oh, the biggest selling point was the Shield triple threat match. Well, I believe it was one of two Shield triple threat matches. But, yep, that was after the Shield broke up, the TWF Shield broke up. That match turned out to be interesting. It was in the dark, and it could have been better done, which is why we redid it at Underground. Getting to Underground, the selling point was hardcore matches, that there were weapons and such, and I'd say another big thing was the rivalry between Owen and Adam. They took the main event in that pay-per-view, and that turned out well. Fans responded to that well. Adam was getting a huge push at that time and doing extremely well for himself, so that main event between probably two of the biggest stars was interesting to say the least. Moving on, we have the Revenge pay-per-view. which was the first one at our new location. The Revenge pay-per-view was exactly what it says, Revenge, but that doesn't exactly mean anything. Now, if I remember correctly, what's the big selling point of Revenge? I think it was just the fact that we had a new location. The new location, we had a couple interesting matches. Dustin and myself kicked it off. That was a good match. It was a bull rope match. That was probably one of the most fun to date, and we had a audience for that one. The main event match was not much to be seen. After that, we had the Triumph, I recall. Triumph's selling point was Aiden Gray making the main event of pay-per-view. Right? Yes, which was interesting because the fact that he ended up beating myself by way of submission, actually TKO, because I passed out to a sleeper hold in the end. Triumph also was getting some gold with Adam Massacre because Adam had acquired so many titles at that time, and that was something. That was real out there. After that, we had Last Chance. Last Chance was pretty amazing, to be honest. I do have to say I really liked the pay-per-view minus the main event, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So, Last Chance, we had the very first match, was probably my favorite match, actually. The very first match was Austin Extreme versus Aiden Gray. It was kind of a high-flying match. That was kind of the intent of the match, and I'd say it was done quite well. Though most of it was Austin Extreme. I'd say he really did something special there, and he made it worthwhile. It made it worth watching, and Aiden had to pull it together and show up again for the main event. It was great. We had another match. It was myself versus Adam Master for the Hardcore Championship. Finally won the Hardcore Championship. The match was good. It could have been better, could have been worse. The main event was quite disappointing, to be honest. We had Dustin Havoc versus Aiden Gray. Now, the match itself was fine. It was well done. The story behind it and the intent behind it was great. It was a good idea. But the fact that we did this match, I think 3 times, if I remember correctly, and every single time we ended up doing it in complete pitch black darkness, and no matter what, we could not get it light. No matter what editing we did, which even with the editing we did, it probably looked horrible. It was just absolutely ridiculous, the lengths we went to try and get the last pay-per-view's main event match to be perfect, and it wouldn't work. It's as simple as that. It wouldn't work. And at some point we had to throw the towel in and be like, this is already pushed back 30 days longer than it should have been. We've got to put something up there, which is why we had to split it in two parts. And when we uploaded the main event, surprise, surprise, it got no views, it got negative feedback, and that's just how it goes sometimes. Not sure how widely known it is, but something that put a bit of a damper in our plans, especially in 2017, is the fact that we lost those first 2 wrestlers. Though they're young, and it's understandable that they'd want to leave at some time, and we thank them for what they did when they were a part of us, it kind of killed us a little, having 2 guys to fulfill like 8 roles, and to put on weekly shows with 2 to 3 matches each. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Which is why, towards 2017, we ended up just switching up our formula and basically going to just 1 match per video, in which it was just me and Dustin, or Dustin and Adam Massacre, or me and Aiden Gray, and that didn't work. Check the views between our weekly episodic programming versus just a match. It's ridiculous. Though we still have a ton of supporters, a ridiculous amount of subscribers, no one was getting behind those single matches. It didn't work. We weren't that satisfied with them, though it's really hard. We were kind of torn because we couldn't make weekly episodic shows when we had just 2 guys. And we've been looking around, we're in talks with some people, but it's really hard, especially since I'm a high school student at the moment. I have a job. He's got schooling, Dustin does too. stuff like that. It's just ridiculous. But as it turns out, after just a couple of those matches, at the time that I'm making this, actually, we want to get back into it. We want to push through it and get back into it again and start making episodes again, start making at least more matches as we can, but we'll have to see how that turns out. We'll have to see how everything goes. Thank you.
Now here are a couple clips from my favorite match in my favorite pay-per-view. This is from TWF Last Chance, the Intercontinental Championship match between Aiden Gray and Austin Extreme.
Kicking it off, we have a rematch for the Intercontinental Championship. If you don't remember, Austin Extreme won in a triple threat match, stealing it from Aiden Gray. Entering right now to kick off the show is the Storm and the World Heavyweight Champion, Aiden Gray. Opponent and Intercontinental Champion Austin Extreme. This is for the Intercontinental Championship. and still the Intercontinental Champion, Austin Extreme. So happy man right there, going on strong. Take second. That last chance, our last figure, that's the last performance.
Getting into the newest stuff from TWF. 2017 was supposed to be a big year for us, a big comeback for us, but in fact it ended up being kind of the downfall of this channel. We had good intentions, but we were at lack for good help at this time. But here, I'll show you the first episode of Brawl in 2017.
Welcome everybody to the first Brawl of 2017. Today we have one of two qualifying matches for the TWF cash case. Now the TWF cash case will be in a one-on-one ladder match at TWF Triumph, the first pay-per-view of 2017.
Here's a good example of exactly what I meant. We had big plans, but if you go and check our channel, TWF Triumph 2017 never even happened. Let's continue.
We have Aiden Gray versus Dustin Havoc. Entering first, he is the Storm, Aiden Gray. He's got his Intercontinental Championship that he won at the return show with his Austin Extreme. Entering next is the TWF World Heavyweight Champion, Dustin Havoc. Ding ding ding.
1, 2. The first ball goes to Aiden Gray. What?
Now time to shed some light on one of our newest uploads, in which Justin Havoc takes on Owen Payne's darker side, the persona known as simply Payne, in an all-out extreme brawl. This is our most recent upload in the form of a match. Let's see what it has to offer. Alright, I want to thank you for getting this far at first. But, now basically what this was meant to be was simply me being bored over a long break, and the fact that I wanted to recap a lot of the first 2 years of TWF wrestling. Now, we busted a couple myths, we looked at a couple of the greatest matches. Now, what's next for TWF? Well, me and Dustin still stand, we're still interested. And though things may be tough, it looks like we're going to try and battle our way through this and continue making the show for you. Though it may be a little different, we're going to try our best. So you can expect to see us soon. Thank you very much for watching.